At this stage of the game, it's very difficult to say. I think that things in the Middle East have been unfolding at a phenomenal rate of knots. What I do perceive, though, is that the ultimate target was indeed Libya all along. Let's just have a look at a couple of things here. On January the 4th of this year, the UN was about to release a report which actually was praising Gaddafi as a model leader in the Arab world. And let's just also recognize one remarkable piece of coincidence. All of the countries that are tagged by the mainstream media on behalf of the political elite, all of the countries tagged, such as Venezuela, Cuba, Libya, Iraq, Iran, North Korea, all have one thing in common, or had one thing in common, and that is they are free of debt from the World Bank. That they are not locked into the World Bank and the IMF. They have their own banks, they issue their own currency. And we also have to recognize the remarkable coincidence between Gaddafi's statement that he was going to start issuing gold dinar and demanding that his oil was purchased in gold. And then the next thing we know, of course, then we have a popular uprising. Now, this was brilliant. It was a brilliant strategy, because when Tony Blair and George Bush announced in 2002 that they were planning to launch a regime change event on Iraq, millions of people hit the streets across the Western world. But this time, effectively, the same has or is in process in Libya as was done in Iraq. What would that be, 8 years ago, in 2003. And yet this time, because, if you like, the scene was set through other popular uprisings, Libya just seemed to be the next natural part of the process. Well, I think actually what's happening elsewhere, particularly in Syria, is deliberately contrived to take the attention away from Libya. The goal is Libya. The goal is control of not just the oil in Libya. Libya's debt was less than 1 month of its GDP. So it was no debt, that was just working capital. But it's not just the oil, because in addition to supporting his country, I mean, let's understand that, Gaddafi paid a social wage. Every Libyan of working age received the equivalent of $1,000 a month. And it was up to them whether they worked or not. So, Gaddafi was putting money back into the community. All education was free. He was not in debt to the World Bank. I'm not suggesting that everything about Gaddafi was wonderful. I think the appropriate term to describe Gaddafi would be a benevolent despot. He was also spending a significant chunk of the oil revenues on developing the massive ancient underground aquifers. And he developed an incredible engineering network to take the water from these aquifers and effectively turn the northern Sahara Desert, the Libyan Sahara, into arable farmland. So this would potentially not only make Libya even more independent, but also enable it to effectively become a pseudo superpower, within that region.